I'm also very delighted to be able to break bread with you and share a few thoughts about the legislation that Congressman Tanner has spoken about. I'd like to thank everybody at Ripon for this opportunity. Thank him, and also just to note that two of the fairest people I've worked with in the Congress are Denny, Hastert, and John Tanner. They are the individuals who I always thought put the cause of helping the people of this country ahead of their political party, in spite of the fact they were very able politicians, and I have a tremendous amount of respect for that. And as John has indicated, occasionally we're able to get things done. One of the things we'll talk about today, we haven't gotten done yet. We might not get done, but I think pushing together, it can make a difference. All of you here have dealt with this Congress, a lot of Congresses, in a variety of ways. And you have met the members of Congress. You probably have been supportive of a number of the members of Congress. And I will tell you, almost without exception, these are very competent, fair people. Obviously, we've gotten to know all of them. If you talk to them individually in their offices or at home or whatever it may be, you'll find that you're dealing with individuals who have risen through society and have been able to get elected by a majority of the voters in their particular districts. I believe that they are fair, they're well-intended, they want to do things like balance the budget and a variety of other things that we don't do. That's what they want to do. And I think they want to see America thrive. Unfortunately, the politics of getting elected and the politics in Washington, D.C., once you get here, are such that often you can't get those things done. And it happens almost immediately. As soon as people come to Washington, D.C., there's sort of a freeze in place in terms of being able to work with individuals from the other side. And as a result, you get into the stalemate which we have today. You could have any one of the 435 of us elected to the House of Representatives get up and speak to you, and they will tell you that we need to balance the budget, that we need, obviously, to address the problems in Iraq and Afghanistan, that we obviously need to deal with the major crises of the day, right now the oil spill and a variety of other things would come up, and probably most would say that we should have done something about health care. Should we have done what we did? Perhaps not, but we should do something, should have done something about health care in this country. Then it gets down to the question of how will you work it out and make a difference. One good example is one that John Tanner mentioned, and that's the whole business of welfare reform. That was legislation which we were able to get through in the House of Representatives and even in the Senate a couple of times, and it was not to the liking of President Clinton, and eventually everybody was able to sit down and work it out, and I think we actually came up with legislation which both sides agreed upon would be beneficial for this country. It's very interesting that today, some number of years later, you rarely hear welfare as an issue in campaigns. If you go back 15 or 20 years ago, it was that there's too much welfare, too many people are being taken care of, they're not doing anything for it, and it was a huge issue, and it's not today. Welfare rules are reduced. Today we turn to issues like immigration and other things that seem to bother people, but welfare was taken off the tables because people sat down and worked it out. Denny Hastert, in my judgment, represented the fairest administration we've had in the House in terms of being bipartisan, in terms of trying to reach out to two people, and he'll be the first to tell you, as he did a little bit today, there's a lot of very partisan things that happen, and partisan isn't always necessarily Republican, Democrat. It is people committed to one course of action and not being willing to negotiate some other way of doing things, and that's what he had to put up with as a Speaker of the House of Representatives. Is what we see on a daily basis, and it's very exacerbated because things simply don't happen. I don't mean to be politically critical in this, but I believe that our president, who clearly is a bright and able person, seems not to be willing, and I'm not sure if it's his will or his staff's will or how this works, but willing to really sit down and work out differences between the political parties. We saw that in the health care legislation. I think it's a good example management of legislation, not necessarily good management, but the management of legislation. I don't think that bill was that far off being a bipartisan piece of legislation. If he had sat down, or his people had sat down with Republicans and had dealt with issues such as medical malpractice reform and perhaps some of the reduction of cost of health insurance, there are ways in which there could have been Republican support, but there was great resistance to it. Is that strictly his fault? No, it's not. It's the Republican leadership as well. The Republican leadership took the position that this was coming out as a negative issue. Why help the Democrats with it? And there was a lot of resistance to it, and as a result, it ended up being a very partisan piece of legislation, which a number of Democrats did not support as well. And now it's become a political issue out there as opposed to necessarily helping people with their health care in this country. And I think it's a shame. I think when you get into legislation such as that, when you get into legislation such as No Child Left Behind, which we'll be working on fairly soon, which is the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, when you are dealing with the issue of trying to reduce the expenditures of our country, and God forbid, actually raise the revenue of the country. Good luck with that one. But when you deal with issues such as this, you better do it on a bipartisan basis, or it won't get done, or if it does get done, it won't get done in a way which is advantageous to the people of the United States. And it's just unfortunate that many people are not willing to sit down and to make a difference, including Republican and Democratic leadership. And as I've indicated, I think the White House as well, and that's a tremendous problem. So how do we resolve it? Well, there's no easy answer. Maybe we make everybody a member of the Ripon Society and we could resolve it that way, but I have a hunch that maybe some of John's fellow Democrats might not wish to do that at this point. But the bottom line is that this is very difficult. Why so? Why are people so opinionated that they have to be very conservative or very progressive or liberal in terms of how they approach it? Why are they so staunchly Democratic or Republican that they cannot sit down and make a difference? Well, basically, it is because of where they come from. And I don't mean the states they come from, I mean the districts from which they come. And this is a function of reapportionment in the United States of America. I'm an exception to this rule, and perhaps that reason I'm a little jaded and maybe not even the right person to be making this argument, because I'm from a state that has one member of the House of Representatives. I don't much give a damn about reapportionment from a political point of view.